Nina was a simple woman living an ordinary life. One day, after leaving the supermarket, she experienced something that truly annoyed her. A luxury car sped past and accidentally splashed dirty water all over her clothes. The driver quickly got out, trying to apologize. He even offered to replace her outfit. But Nina, already upset, refused his apology. With an angry face, she chose to walk away without accepting his offer. When she arrived at her apartment, Nina was greeted by her husband, Alexander. He was a Mandarin lecturer who also worked at a travel agency. That day, they received another pile of bills because of late payments. Even though their financial situation was tough, Alexander tried to calm her down. He suggested they take a short trip together, hoping it would clear their minds and help them figure out a solution to their financial troubles. Meanwhile, the man who had splashed Nina earlier was Sergei. He lived in a luxurious home with his wife, Tamara, and their child. From the outside, his life seemed glamorous, full of comfort and wealth. But the reality inside the house was different. Tamara often felt lonely because Sergei was always too busy with work. This made their marriage full of small arguments. Days later, Alexander carried on with his teaching routines. Nina, who was also one of his students, spent some time chatting with her friend Larissa. They talked about Nina's marriage. To Larissa, Alexander was a handsome, intelligent, and caring man. Even though they lived modestly, Nina deeply loved her husband. She knew happiness wasn't always measured by money. After finishing his class, Alexander received a job offer as a Mandarin translator for a company. Since he already had another obligation, he asked Nina to take his place. At first, she hesitated. Would be her very first experience. But for the sake of their financial needs, Nina bravely accepted. When she arrived at the company, she was shocked. The boss was none other than Sergei, the same man she had scolded on the streets. Sergei was clearly displeased to see her. He still remembered how stubborn Nina had been. But since the meeting with Chinese clients couldn't be delayed, Sergei had no choice but to let her translate. To everyone's surprise, Nina performed exceptionally well. She impressed the clients and made them feel comfortable, which led to a successful deal for Sergei's company. Everyone felt relieved, and they even celebrated together afterward. During the celebration, Sergei gave Nina 2 chips to play with. Confidently, she placed a bet on a number rarely chosen by others. Shockingly, she won big 700 chips at once. But the victory didn't last long. Instead of cashing out, Nina treated it as entertainment and bet everything she had. In the end, she lost it all. Sergei was baffled by her recklessness. After the meeting was over, Sergei invited Nina to play bowling. The tense atmosphere slowly faded, and they began to feel less awkward around each other. While they were playing, Sergei's assistant boldly suggested that Sergei should take Nina to a hotel, saying he needed to experience life outside of endless business and stock markets. That idea lingered in Sergei's mind. Later, he invited Nina to dinner at a fancy restaurant. But Sergei's manner remained stiff. He spoke as if addressing an employee, straight and commanding, with confidence. He then invited Nina to a hotel to continue their conversation. Nina was offended. To her, it felt degrading. She valued her dignity and found his offer highly inappropriate. She immediately left, angered by his behavior. Still, Sergei wasn't willing to let her go. He told Nina bluntly that if she ever wanted money or a luxurious life, he could easily provide it. Everything depended on her decision. Back at home, Nina told Alexander about her new experience. She mentioned her success as a translator and even about her brief big win at roulette. Starting with only 200, she almost turned it into 7 million but failed to cash it out. Hearing this, Alexander was furious, saying Nina had wasted a golden opportunity. His frustration grew, and his harsh attitude began to wear Nina down. Deep inside, she started to consider Sergei's offer. The next day, Nina confided in Larissa. Sergei had promised her a wealthy life, and it made Nina torn. On one hand, she wanted to help her husband get out of debt, but on the other, she didn't want to sacrifice her values as a wife. A few days later, A warning letter arrived from the bank their apartment would be seized if they didn't pay off their debt. Feeling desperate, Alexander suggested they take out another loan under Nina's name, since his own had already been blacklisted. Nina refused. She was tired of living in endless debt. That evening, she finally called Sergei and met him at a hotel. Honestly, Nina shared her financial struggles. Sergei acted right away, calling the bank to delay interest payments and negotiate lower installments. Nina was stunned by his sincerity. Sergei assured her that even if she didn't like him, he would never force her. His kindness touched Nina deeply, and that night, she decided to accept his offer to spend time together. When she returned home, she was exhausted both physically and emotionally. But Alexander only kept talking about debts and bank relief, completely blind to Nina's inner turmoil. He assumed she was simply tired from work and study. Meanwhile, Tamara began to notice something off. She found the scent of women's perfume on Sergei's clothes. Her suspicion grew stronger, and resentment filled her heart. They even started sleeping in separate rooms. Later, Sergei called Nina again, asking her to meet at the same hotel. Nina refused, saying their involvement had to stop. But Sergei insisted that he would wait for her no matter what. Around that time, Larissa invited Nina and Alexander to her birthday party. Because Alexander was busy, he told Nina to go alone. Strangely, Nina didn't attend the party. She went straight to Sergei instead. From then on, their meetings became more frequent. One day, Sergei suddenly got news that his child was sick, so he couldn't meet Nina. Left waiting alone at the hotel, Nina felt devastated and abandoned. She returned home carrying that sadness, which made Alexander wonder why she seemed distant and gloomy. Concerned, he took her to see a doctor. The results showed Nina was physically fine, but suffering from heavy emotional stress. Overwhelmed by guilt, Nina finally confessed to Alexander. She admitted she had slept with another man, but swore it would never happen again. Alexander exploded with rage, refusing to listen, even when Nina explained she did it to save them from debt. Their argument ended with Nina walking out of their apartment. She called Sergei, telling him she had left Alexander and had nowhere to go. Sergei came right away and even bought her a luxury apartment. Their relationship grew deeper after that. But Larissa, upset by what was happening, confronted Nina. She warned her that Sergei still had a wife and a child who loved him. Meanwhile, Alexander fell into ruin. He drowned himself in alcohol and eventually started an affair with Larissa, Nina's own best friend. As time passed, Nina became more dependent on Sergei. She wanted him to belong only to her, constantly calling and visiting his office. Sergei felt uneasy, even though he knew it was the consequence of his actions. One night, as Nina waited for Sergei at her apartment, the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, Alexander was there, his face gloomy. Without hesitation, he forced his way in and demanded his rights as her husband. The next morning, Nina told Sergei something shocking: she was pregnant. Sergei panicked and asked for time to think. When he went home, Tamara confronted him, demanding the truth about their marriage and his affair. Sergei admitted everything, hoping Tamara would understand. But she couldn't bear the fact that her husband had fathered a child with another woman. She decided to leave him. A year passed. Nina was now living with Sergei and raising their child together. Alexander, meanwhile, sank deeper into despair, eventually moving in with Larissa. Time went on, and Nina's child grew up. At a formal event, Alexander appeared, now looking successful and accomplished. Unexpectedly, Nina showed up too, alongside Sergei. She greeted Alexander warmly with a smile, but Sergei acted cold, even irritated by his presence. Recently, Sergei had become more absorbed in business calls than paying attention to Nina. In their conversation, Nina finally opened up. She admitted her marriage with Sergei wasn't built on love. She realized Sergei had never truly loved her there. Marriage was more about reputation and professionalism. Alexander seized the chance, trying to convince Nina to come back to him. They even spent time together at a hotel, where Alexander sincerely confessed that he still loved her deeply and wished to reconcile, but Nina ultimately refused. For her, love no longer mattered. Her only focus was on achieving success and never falling back into the poverty of her past.